Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Earl Rush, and tonight I will be the moderator for Real Fellas Talk Sports. In Atlanta, we have Kevin Edmondson. How you doing, Kevin?
We're doing fantastic, girl. How are you this evening?
I'm doing pretty good. What about you, David?
Doing well here in Indianapolis, and we're celebrating a Colts victory on Sunday, and we hope to have another one this coming Sunday.
Boo.
All right.
All
Oh,
right.
don't boo. Sorry about your Hawk. Your Falcons and your Hawks.
Not my Falcons.
Oh, you
We'll
live
talk about
there.
that later.
You live there.
Okay. Well, breaking news today: the greatest running back that ever played in NFL, Gail Sayers, passed away, and later on in the show, David Burnett will be expressing his feelings and his thoughts on that. We also have former All-Star from the NBA, Phil Chenier, that's going to be coming on, joining us at the NBA Sports Desk, and we will be discussing the NBA playoffs. It's going to be hot. We will also cover some NFL, some NCAA, and maybe a little bit of basketball. A little bit of baseball as well. Okay? So, we've got a great show coming on. We're going to bring up pretty soon, we're going to bring up Mr. Chenier. David has provided a highlight clip for us. We're going to play that, and then we will bring on Mr. Chenier. Okay, so what's going on with that? So, the three-time former All-Star, first-team All-Rookie team, one of the best Bullet and Wizard basketball players ever, one of the five players that have had their jersey retired, had a great career with the Wizards and the Bullets, and he's also Wizards broadcaster for over 32 years. They hung his jersey in the rafter in 2017. Mr. Chenier, how are you doing, sir?
Earl, I'm doing great, man. It's good to be alive.
Wow. we all are honored that you took the time to come out and have some fun with us and discuss this NBA. So we're going to get straight to it. First things first, I wanted to ask you, if you were playing in this league right now, the way the rules are with the hand checking, you averaged 17.8 for your career. I got to believe you probably would average about 25, 26 with the rules and the way the games were today. What do you think?
Well, it's funny you asked that because I was sitting at home the other day watching one of the games, and it's just amazing how much of the game is weighted towards offense. And you're right. I was 6'3", 6'4", maybe 185, so I was going against guys a little stronger than me. And in that time, you were able to hand check, and you put your hand. And so I had to develop very quickly. Gene Shue was my coach. Gus Johnson was my mentor. And they indoctrinated me rather quickly that you gotta learn to get those hands off you. So I had a pattern where I'd be dribbling the ball with one hand, and when I felt that check slowing me up, I'd be able to knock that hand away and then move where I wanted to move. And all that stuff was legal. But nowadays, as you said, you're not able to. That's why guys are able to, drive by people, because any kind of contact, they're going to blow the whistle. So I'm not going to say that I would average certain number of points, but I would say that would definitely be to my advantage. because I had a very, quick first step. I was able to, handle the ball with both hands, and so that, not having to go up against that physical contact and that physical pressure would allow me even more so to break down my defender and get to where I wanted to go.
Pleasure of playing with a couple of Hall of Famers, and you played with a lot of people who ended up being in the Hall of Fame.
That's right.
What was it like having Big Wes Unseld give you picks? I mean, just give us a little example of just how you felt playing back there at those times with the physical people on your team and in the NBA.
Well, my first year I had the pleasure and the benefit of playing with two of the strongest and most physical players in the league at that time, and that was Wes Unseld and Gus Johnson. And so playing with them, and then Gene Shue was my coach. Gene had played in the NBA, and Gene had a lot of really good lessons and ways of teaching me how to adapt to this new physical style of game. So, Wes, setting those picks, and I learned very early. And that's what Gene would tell me. He said, Phil, you got a guy out there that's the best in the league at setting picks. Why should you work so hard, dribbling, going one-on-one? Work without the ball, rub him off your picks, and then, then you got your shot that you want, And I learned to do that more and more. But I tell you, Earl, it wasn't until a couple of years after I retired and I started running into people like Austin Carr, Brian Winters, Earl. Earl would tell me that, but guys that would have to guard me, and not only would they be concerned about guarding me, they'd have to look over their shoulder to find out where Wes was, because if they didn't see Wes and he snuck up on him, they knew they were going to be out, and they used to tell me, in fact, one funny story. I remember we were playing Milwaukee with Brian Winters, and Brian decided to pick me up in the backcourt one time, and Wes was a little slow in getting down court, and he used to like to pick people off like that. So I could see him waving me over towards him, and of course we're in the backcourt, everybody else is gone, so Brian didn't have anybody to communicate with him that, hey, look out, there's a pick coming, And all I know is I got to that point and I heard this bam, boom. And I looked over my shoulder and Brian Winters was laid out. We go down, it's 5-on-4, and I'm scoring. We're coming back down court, and Brian is just sitting up on the floor, just sitting up like, what just happened, And years later, he reminded me about that pick, and I said, I tell you, Brian, I really feel sorry for you. I didn't feel that sorry for you. I was glad it wasn't me, but I did feel for you that time. But that's, that was the benefit of using those guys. But, we also had Elvin Hayes, another Hall of Famer, Bobby Dandridge, who I think will be in the Hall of Fame one day. So Dave Bing, who's in the Hall of Fame, played with Earl briefly. So yeah, it's a great, great feeling, especially when you look back at it and you still have those memories and those friendships that, you can sit back and talk about some of the experiences, some of the funny things that happened, some of the silly things that happened in training camp. And, it's something that you'll always cherish.
Cool. I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'm going to let Kevin and David get something because we have a lot to discuss on the NBA. My last question to you, Mr. Chenier, would be, when you first got into broadcasting, did you have any idea that you would be doing it for over 30 years?
Yeah, none at all. I tell you what, when I was in college, we played in this tournament. And we played against, it was a 14 tournament. We played against Harvard. And Harvard at that time had a brother by the name of James Brown.
And
Boyd Lewis. And after the game, it was a really good game too. After the game, we won, by the way. But after the game, JB stopped by and said, "Hey man, what are you guys doing afterwards?" We said, because I think we were in Michigan somewhere, some godforsaken place. Anyway, so said, "We're not doing anything." He said, "Why don't you come on by and hang out with us? We'll chat." So we ended up doing that, and from that point, I developed a friendship with JB. So now you fast forward about 10 years, and I'm still with the Bullets. It's towards the latter part of my career, but JB is doing games, and so we talk again, and that's what it was. A few years after that, I had stopped playing, and he was doing the BET games, the Black College games. So he said, "I need somebody to fill in for me because sometimes I've got 2 or 3 games I got to do." So I said, "Man, I've never done any broadcasting. I don't know if I can do that." He said, and Charlie Neal was doing the play-by-play, the great Charlie Neal.
Charlie Neal,
so, I said, "Well, okay, I'll try it." So he was very encouraging. And then, of course, Charlie Neal was really helpful, and all the other people that went along with that. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then 3 years later, that's when the Bullets decided to have their cable. And at that point, Wes had retired, and Wes was the vice president. So I kind of approached him, and at that point, the job wasn't in demand. I mean, you didn't have people going after it. And so to be totally honest with you, I didn't even do any kind of, showcase, or I didn't. He just said, "Yeah, you got it."
Wow.
So, and I was working at the Boys Club, Boys and Girls Club down on 9th and P at Shiloh Baptist Church, and so this was kind of, doing the games was kind of a part-time gig. And we started doing more and more games. And next thing I know, we were doing all 82 games. And 33 years. And it just went by quickly. It went by quickly.
And you have a podcast with Mr. Buckhantz now, correct?
We just started it back in, I guess we started back in July, August. Yeah. So it's called On the Road with Buck and Phil. Okay. And, for the most part, we try and talk about some of our experiences because, I mean, I've done the last 20 years that I did the games. Buck was the play-by-play guy. So we have loads of experience together. We became very good friends. So even during the off season, we vacation together sometimes. We go on golf excursions. We introduced each other to our friends, and so we had extended friendships, extended family, and so we just thought that that's what we do. But we also know a lot of people in the industry, so it's kind of interesting. We just earlier today, we did David Aldridge. We had Julie Donaldson before that. We've had Bobby D. We've had, we've had a slew of people. It's been fun. We talk about some of the current events going on and some of the obviously with the sports going on. We're talking basketball, talking playoffs.
For Mr. Chenier.
One thing, Phil, you were talking about Buckhantz, and of course, I had a chance to the experience of working with Steve for quite a few years at Channel 5, and luckily, because there were times when Buckhantz would be off or not available, the news guy and me, I got a chance to do some sports. And some of my favorite friends at Fox 5 were in the sports department, and Buckhantz was one of them. But while I'm talking to you, and broadcasting, of course, is important to me. But while I'm talking to you, I'd like to ask you a question, a very serious question. This year, we lost Washington, D.C. in particular, lost 2 icons of basketball, John Thompson and your former teammate, Wes Unseld. What are your thoughts on both of those men who were so influential in terms of what happens with hoops in Washington, D.C., and in terms of the broader legacy that they provide to Washington, D.C., not just as basketball experts, but as men of the community.
Well, you're right, Dave. I mean, both of these guys were larger than life figures, and figuratively and and virtually. But I'll deal with John first in that I just think that he brought an incredible amount of integrity to that position of coaching for so many years. And I'm not trying to label all coaches, but for so many years, it was such a hustle. And you had people that, were just into players performing for them during that time. And I think that not only did he show a concern and a care for those players, but he also showed and brought integrity to the overall impact of sports itself with his position against the conference on the Title IX and
Yes.
and some of the other issues that he brought in and the way young Black athletes were being treated, and again bringing in that diversity that you don't realize that this young Black kid's experience is probably different from this other kid's experience. So, we have to take all that into consideration. John Thompson was the one that really brought that to the forefront and obviously put Georgetown on the map when you go all over the country. He was kind of like the college version of the Oakland Raiders. You go
Absolutely.
Georgetown jersey, Georgetown hat, same thing with the Raiders. But that's what he brought. And even after he left Georgetown, I mean, listening to him on the team, and he was just a great personality. And I think anybody who heard him talk would always stop and listen to hear what he had to say. As far as Wes, I mean, I can still remember my first day coming in, and keep in mind, my first year was the year after they had gone to the finals against Milwaukee. So I was at home watching that series. And then about 2 months later, here I am trying out for that team and playing alongside of Gus Johnson, Earl Monroe, and Wes Unseld. And Wes was just such a big figure. I mean, he was the one at Christmas time, he would have everybody over at his house and have a Christmas party. He was the one that you looked to for leadership and guidance. And at that time, it was he and Gus. I mean, make no mistake about it. They were the two leaders, and they were the two, they set the standard. And, played with Wes for those 9 years, and it was an honor. And, the last few years were difficult, if I can say that, for him, because he spent a lot of time in medical facilities, hospitals. He had knee issues, ankle issues, circulation issues, and he just spent so much of his time there. And it was tough to see. But I tell you, man, he was just such a powerful person and positive person. And I mean, so you would go to see him, and he would ask about your family, and he would interact with you, and he would make you feel like he was okay. I mean, every now and then he kind of let his guard down and said, I'd really like to go get home. And he had a couple of grandkids that he wasn't able to spend all the time with that he would have loved to. So I think about all that. But again, with him, I think about him as always being the face of this organization. I mean, God bless John Wall, Bradley Beal, even Gilbert Arenas during his stretch, and Elvin Hayes, as great as he was. But Wes Unseld will always be the face of this organization, and rightfully so.
Beautiful. Kevin, what do you have for Mr. Chenier?
Hey, Phil. First of all, I want to say congratulations on a great career.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed watching you play, and as we said earlier, I really enjoyed you taking on Walt Frazier. That was that was good. I had a bunch of New York friends. So that was a good thing. Anyway, we're kind of running behind time. I'm going to ask you a quick question about the modern game today. One of the things we have going in the game today that you didn't have back in your time was this whole instant replay challenge system.
Yeah.
And I want to get your thoughts on it, in particular in the area of if you're going to have instant replay or challenge, why can't you get it right? And I'll point to one game recently, I think it was the Bucks and the Heat were playing, where the ball went out of bounds, ends the game went out of bounds off of Jimmy Butler, but they called it for the Heat, but the replay went back and saw it went off of Butler, but he was fouled. So now in your day, that was the referee making the correct call.
Make-up call?
Yeah, because the man got fouled, he didn't call the foul.
Yeah.
So if you can't get it right, what do you think about this replay system? If you can't get it right, why have it?
Yeah, it becomes really frustrating if you look back at it and see where they got it wrong. Now, it's one thing for us to sit at home and see the instant replay and that's it. But if they are able to look at it and the officials then look at it and they're not able to change it or don't change it, then it becomes very frustrating. And like we were talking before, I'm kind of old school in the sense that, I understand that mistakes will be made and sometimes they go against you and you get pissed off, no question about it. But you learn to live with that. But this idea of changing, and then I tell you the other thing, Kevin, that was really frustrating is when the league, they did this a few years ago, when the league would have, what was it, the last 2-minute report, and they would tell you all the calls that were made. And you would say, well, whoa, why bring that up now? It can't be disputed. It can't be changed. It can't change anything. All you're doing is just pissing people off and embarrassing the officials. So I have some real reservations about that. I understand the desire to get things just right. But, oftentimes, I'll give you a case in point, and I was going to bring this up on our podcast earlier today, but there was a play in the last Boston Miami game where it's down the stretch, critical play. Jaylen Brown had the ball. Duncan Robinson was all over him to the point that, he was fouling him basically. And Jaylen took the ball from one side to the other because he was pressuring him. And his elbow inadvertently caught him in the chin.
Yeah, I remember that. And
they called an offensive foul. Then they went back and looked at it, and they upgraded it to a flagrant foul.
Oh, no.
Now, a flagrant is, from what I understand, a flagrant 1 is unnecessary. Flagrant 2 is unnecessary, and something they have another word for it.
Malice or something like that.
Yeah, unnecessary and over. Okay. But the bottom line is that was a play where he was making a movement, and I actually reached out to Ronnie Nunn, who's a retired NBA official, and he goes online and he makes calls on these different things, and I said, any other contact, if there's any other contact between these two players other than his elbow with his face, and you're calling that on the defensive player because the defensive player is taking up the space, but they go and look at that. And again, I'm saying you got to be able to see where he's crowding him. And Jaylen didn't reach out and hit him with the elbow. He was making a natural movement. And it's like you can put your face in somebody's elbow and get hit there, and now all of a sudden that changes the game. Fortunately, I should say, Boston went on and won that game. But those are the kind of things that, it just kind of bothers me when they go back to instant replay and you feel like they still didn't get it right. They looked at the overall play. So I like the instinctive part of the officiating where, and I understand, if the ball goes out, you're not sure who touched it last, okay, I can live with going back and checking that out. But, these fouls, and now I guess what it is each team has one play where they can say, oh, I want you to take a look at that, and you have carte blanche in terms of being able to reverse the call, look at the whole play, and make a decision. But it just takes away some of the spontaneity of officiating, which you're always so used to, that being a part of the game.
Well, looking at
appreciate you sharing that. That was what I want to hear from. I want to hear it from a pro. Earl, you back with us?
Anyway,
we finished up, bro. I think we're ready to go into the NBA segment.
I'm hanging in there. Okay, we're going to start off with the Celtics and the David. And we're going to start off with the Celtics and the Lakers. Mr. Burnett, what are your thoughts and what are you seeing so far?
I got to tell you, the Lakers in Denver, I like Denver provided they play the game, and hit shots. Jokic, to me, is the leader of that team. I look at the Lakers, and I'm like, it's LeBron, and the other day LeBron didn't play well, and it took Anthony Davis's last second shot to win. And then the next game, LeBron played okay, but Anthony Davis gets 2 rebounds. The Lakers are a team of 2 players and then a bunch of support players. I think Denver can get them if Denver doesn't psych itself out. What do you think, Phil?
I feel like I just think that LeBron is such a dynamic player, and AD is raising his level to a degree. And I'll tell you somebody else that you didn't mention that can have a huge impact on that, and that's Rajon Rondo.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
How he played, and even in the game they lost, they were down by 17-18, and he was in there when they started. This guy, there's just something about his game. And I remember when he played with Boston, same way. He just made basketball plays. He could find the open man. Not a great shooter, but if you get off him, he's going to make a shot on you. That's key. So I'm going to go with the Lakers, but I'm like you. I like that I like the diversity and the multiple level of the depth of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
And Jokic is really fun to watch. Really fun to watch. So
Jokic is kind of robotic and slow, but so precise in what he does. He can shoot.
He's very
he can pass.
Yeah. I can't say that I can remember any big man handle the ball, and I'm talking about on the dribble. And I can bring it up in a fast-paced dribble. I don't mean just bounce it slowly. I'm talking about dribble on the attack. And he handles the ball with both hands, and his passing is so creative. So, it's going to be interesting to see, they got Harris, they got Murray, they got the young kid Porter. They've got, they've got a squad for years to come, and it'll be interesting to see. So I'm not, if Denver is to win, and I'm kind of pulling from them because Little Wes's son, assistant coaches. So I'd like to see that happen. But it certainly would throw a curveball into what everybody thinks is going to be all the Lakers, LeBron, and all this. So, a Denver win would do that. But I still think that the Lakers have to be favored.
Yeah. Early on in the earlier shows, we did it with our predictions. And I said my dark horse was Denver because I thought, if you look at the Clippers and the Lakers, these are thrown together teams. These guys have been playing together for a couple of years, and they actually went down to the wire with Portland last year. Mm-hmm. Now, they're still young guys, but.
Well, I had the Clippers from the get-go. I thought the Clippers would win it all. I just love that combination defensively of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Yeah. Those two are two of the best defenders that I've seen in just about any. They can guard down low, but they also can guard the perimeter. They can play the passing lane. They can play one-on-one. They rebound the ball well. And then you got Luke Williams coming off the bench. You had Reggie Jackson coming off the bench. I mean, they had depth, and I just thought they were going to be, the team to go. But Denver proved us wrong.
Team ball versus, I think.
Yeah.
You witnessed this is when it got tight. It seemed like Denver played like a team, and the Clippers started going one-on-one.
I thought the Clippers were really.
Well, I like the Lakers in this series.
Okay. Well, I think that it looks like he's frozen. He's the Iceman there.
Iceman, Figaro.
But I understand the Lakers being the favorite. But I like the versatility that Denver offers.
Okay.
What do you think about Miami and Boston at this point?
I still think Boston can pull this out. I think Boston has more talent.
Yeah.
Especially getting Gordon Hayward back. They got a guy, obviously Tatum, but Jaylen Brown, who is from my alma mater, so I'm kind of pulling for them anyway. But those three, those three are tough. And Marcus Smart is a very, very good player. But it just seems like Miami seems to be a little bit more consistent, and their play is more team oriented, and their effort is more of a collective one. But I think that Boston has a little bit more individual talent, and and I love their coach. I think he's the best coach in the league, and I think already it's starting to show because they've made some changes, and they've adapted in game 3. They adapted a lot more to that zone. So it'll be interesting because they're playing tonight, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So it'll be interesting.
We're gonna hear him get off here.
And if Boston gets game 4 and it's 2-2, now I think you're gonna have a real good series.
Right. Yeah.
So Phil, let me ask you this. My opinion was Miami was beating these teams because they had a better small ball lineup. But I think that with Gordon Hayward coming back, that puts a challenge to Miami's small ball lineup.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's a depth that they're going to have. They've got 3 guys in there, and Jaylen Brown and Tatum are excellent defenders. Again, the game is a perimeter game. As much as you'd like to say, get the ball down low, everybody's shooting threes. Everybody's either shooting threes or driving to the basket. So you've got to have players that are versatile, that can shoot the 3, but it also can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. So, but I think that one of the strengths that I see in Miami is the fact that they have a very solid collective defensive front. So they have 5 guys that are defending very well defensively. And sometimes that's going to really make things difficult for opposing teams when they're constantly switching, they're rotating just the right way. So they're always bothering, the shooter or the offensive player and sometimes turning them into making mistakes. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
I like Miami to win it all. I like Kevin's telling me worried about Hayward. I'm not worried about Hayward. It's gonna take him a while for him to get back in shape, but I like Miami to win it all. Guys, before we go off, would you guys have anything to ask Mr. Chenier before we move on to the NFL? Kevin or David, either one.
Well, I do have one question for you, and this relates to how you played the game. Miami's got this young guy named Tyler Hero, who I've been in love with at Kentucky. I argued with a guy last year for days about he thought they should have drafted somebody else, and I said, man, this guy can straight out ball. What's your opinion of Tyler Hero?
I tell you what, he's making a believer of you. He's long, and that's the one thing that's so important when you go to a team. Not only that they can utilize your skills, but a team that's mature and professional enough to incorporate young players and say, okay, this is how we do this. You can be a part of this. You can really add to this team. And I think that's what he's done, not just offensively, but defensively as well. He's a good rebounder from that position. What is he, about 6'7", 6'6"?
4, 6'5", something like 6'5".
Okay. But he rebounds the ball well. I know he had a couple big rebounds. But he shows that he's fitting in, he's comfortable. And of course, the last game, he was shooting lights out, especially in that first quarter. So, you look at that team, Robinson, Bam Adebayo, those are all 3 years and under, So you got a young team there. And Butler's not really that old. I mean, he might be 30, So, once again, Pat Riley, Spoelstra, they put together a pretty good team there that looks like they're going to have some longevity to them.
Hey, flashback to the 70s, he's a young Phil Chenier. That's what you did.
There you go.
Mr. Chenier.
I had to look at. I said, "Is that really me with hair?"
I got a question for you, Phil.
Go ahead.
What do you think about LeBron crying about not getting so many votes on the MVP? What do you think about that? Do you think that he should have won? Do you agree that
Well, I didn't see or hear his words. Now, if he was crying the way you're saying, that's unprofessional.
He was crying.
He has an argument in that the standard for him is a lot higher than other people, because you look at what he's done this year. He averaged about 26, 27 points. He was in the top 5 in assists. He
led the league in assists.
Yeah. Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah. I didn't realize that. And he had the team with the second best record in the league. Now, he has an argument. Now, anytime there's that kind of decision being made, just like we say about the All-Star, you only have 12 players. We have 12 players, but there's easily 14 or 15 players that deserve to be on that All-Star team. You can only have 12. Well, you can only have one MVP. So he has an argument. And if he wants to use that to motivate himself, then fine. But if he's really singing the blues about him being cheated, talk about the year that Steve Nash won I'm kind of tired of that, really. I understand. But, it happened long ago. We know that you were one of the great ones. We know that you could have won it if they didn't give it to Steve Nash. But Steve Nash had a great year, too. So, that's the way it went, So, let it go. But
amen to that.
But I
David,
think,
do you have anything to ask Mr. Chenier before we go to the NFL?
I would just say this. Giannis Antetokounmpo earned it.
Mm-hmm.
He earned it. LeBron can't be the.
It has nothing to do with the playoffs.
That's right.
All about the regular season.
LeBron can't be MVP every year.
Right.
I guess it just bothers me that he complains about it. Just shut up. Mm-hmm. Giannis was good this year. Let him have his. Now, when Giannis starts winning championships, then maybe that's a different story
for him too.
There you go.
Maybe a couple of them. Again, I didn't see how LeBron was complaining about this, but if he said, "Hey, look, I thought I should have won it, and I played well," but congratulations to Giannis, he played well too, but I could have won it, and then let it go, because we understand that. He's LeBron, and he's put up those kind of numbers.
Absolutely.
And sometimes things are a little unfair, and that when you set that high bar for yourself, a lot's going to be expected of you after that.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't like LeBron that much, so maybe he wasn't crying. Maybe he was just bringing up a point. But
so you were exaggerating his reaction.
All right.
So, Mr. Chenier, you're quite welcome. I don't know whether you're a 2-sport man, a 3-sport man. You're quite welcome to stay. I'm going to get greedy and join us for the NFL part if you choose. If not, we really appreciate you for giving your time and giving us a little sports show credit by appearing on our show. So that would be on you. You have to let me know on that. But we're going to move on to the NFL now. But
that sounds good. I'm gonna hang in there and listen to hear what you guys got to say in the other stuff.
All right.
That sounds fabulous. The NFL.
All right. It sounds like Earl has been frozen for the moment. But let's talk about the NFL. We had some really great games this weekend. Earl, you're back now. I'll toss it back to you. We had some really great games this weekend, didn't we, Earl?
We did, David. Go ahead and take off. Don't let me take you out of stride. Go on in. I'll fall in at the right time.
Okay, we'll let you go on that. What was the best game of the week? Kevin, what do you think was the best game of the week, the most important, critical game?
Well, I'd have to say I actually picked two games. And I had to pick two because all the games were great this weekend. I was really pleased with the level of play. But the Cowboys and Falcons, I have to pick that one as one of my two games because it's a big offensive explosion. I mean, you had everything there. You had a big offensive explosion. You had drama. You had controversy. And you had a last-minute win. And the Patriots and the Seahawks, I think that was another great game. You had two quarterbacks, two black quarterbacks battling, both trying to make statements. Again, both games went down to the end of the wire. And it's kind of funny. The Falcons, they kind of lost the game what I call a Cowboys way. You know, that's kind of the way the Cowboys do the games. So it was kind of ironic that it happened to them. And what they call that, the watermelon kick? Oh, that was so funny. I'm like,
I've never seen a kick quite like that.
Yeah, that was probably the most entertaining game to me.
I've never seen a kick quite like that. But you know, I think the special teams coach and the head coach have to be criticized heavily for that, for not preparing the players. And yes, the players should know more about what the rules are and whether they can touch the ball. But it was your Atlanta Falcons. I
live in Atlanta, okay? Yes, I do.
All right, you got Atlanta behind your head, man.
But I'm from D.C., okay?
Okay, I hear you.
I'm a Washington football team. No, I live in Atlanta. Never mind.
Mr. Chenier, if we're talking about a team you like or dislike, feel free to jump in at any time. That's not a problem at all.
Well, I'm from the Bay Area, so when I go way back, I was a 49er fan. And then Oakland was even closer to home. I'm from Berkeley, you know.
Okay.
But obviously, I'm one of these ones that I want my team to be there. I've got a lot of friends back in the Bay Area right now. Even though they moved to Vegas, they're still Raider fans. But I did watch that game Monday night, and that was a good game. I still pull for them.
Right.
Well, they're 2-0.
Yeah.
They're 2-0.
Speaking of the 49ers, actually, on our first show, David, Kevin, and myself predicted there were going to be some early injuries. But what do you guys make of the rash of injuries of the 49ers and some of the major players in the NFL right now? Do you attribute it to no preseason, or just give me your thoughts?
I think it's just luck and bad luck. Things do happen. The NFL is not for long. And this is one of the reasons why NFL players need guaranteed contracts. It's a collision sport. The careers are not long. You know, the position I used to play is devalued anymore. Running backs should be paid a lot more, especially considering how long their careers are, which is just a couple of years anymore. They're deemed disposable. But the injuries and the top players, I just think it was kind of the luck of the draw. I don't think the lack of a preseason had anything to do with it, unless somebody can show me some statistics or documentation. Otherwise, I think it's just the way it kind of went, and it could happen again this weekend.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the analytical side. I do believe there is some correlation between not having a preseason, just scrimmaging, as opposed to actually get out. I guess, Phil, you can rate this, Phil. There were probably times when you guys went half speed, 3/4 speed as a basketball player, but it's totally different when you go full speed. So.
Yeah, and I was going to say the same thing, Kevin. That now, David, I can't give you any statistics that say that's okay, but I do believe that and let's face it, all these players are used to that training camp. And even if they're rookies, they're used to, the preseason in college football. So they didn't have the kind of build-up preparation, the bumps and the bruises and even just the idea of there's an instinctual part of any game that you play where if you're really on top of your game, your instincts tell you that something's coming here. You don't even have to see it, whether it's basketball, baseball, football, soccer, whatever it is,
Well, I think it could have, maybe COVID had something to do with it because, you're constantly thinking about protecting yourself. You're wearing a mask, all of your behaviors that would typically happen. Because like college football, there's no preseason in college. In the brief time I played college football, we spent.
They have those camps where those guys are in there working out. And I don't know if the colleges were probably not able to really get together the way they normally would, because it was shut down. College was shut down too.
Well, this weekend you've got Notre Dame and Wake Forest canceled.
Yeah. So
because of COVID.
Yeah. But so many things are different. Like you said, you have a routine. I mean, even going back to when these guys were playing Pop Warner, or in any sport when you're playing, you have a seasonal routine that
yes,
helps
indeed.
Work up and build up to the regular season, and then you're used to the regular season, going places, traveling places, playing in front of crowds, playing in gyms on the road, playing at your home gym, all of those things. And I'm not saying that made a major, it just adds to the confusion and the distraction of preparing yourself and getting yourself ready to be, at your optimal.
I agree with that. Totally. Yeah. Totally agree.
So David's been blowing the quarterback's horn for Seattle.
Of course.
And I've been watching this guy. This guy actually, he's really had a really, really good this year. So I feel bad about ribbing David on this situation.
It just means you weren't paying attention, Earl.
Oh, okay. Kevin, you going to chime in? You going to help me out, or what you going to do here?
I appreciate you giving Russell Wilson his props, but it's a little late. He's been spectacular every year he's been in the league. I followed Russell Wilson. I didn't see him much when he played for North Carolina State, but when he did that senior transfer to Wisconsin, I just saw a guy that was special, and he's been special ever since. They said he was too small. Well, now he's arguably the best quarterback in football, and you can make that argument. He's got 9 TD passes, 1 interception. He's thrown for 600 yards in 2 games. He's the unquestioned leader of the Seattle Seahawks, and he's earning every bit of that $35 million a year.
Okay, we had a best of a bet that we had a best of the best that we were going to go to, but I'm going to switch it up. You guys can curse me out tomorrow. What are the top 5? What are the top 5 quarterbacks in the game right now? It seems to me like the top 5 are black on my list, but
actually they are. What do you think, Kevin?
I wasn't prepared for that question. So I don't
know
what to tell you.
I'm sorry. Let's go back to this. Who are the top 5 linebackers in the game today?
I don't know who the top 5 are, but I know at least 2: Bobby Wagner of the Seahawks and Darius Leonard of the Colts. Darius Leonard has led the league in tackles. By the way, a funny story about Darius Leonard. The Colts won this weekend. Darius Leonard, at the end of the game, took off his gloves. I don't know if you guys heard this story. Took off his gloves, threw them to the fans, in the very few fans in the stands. In his gloves was his wedding ring.
That's not
in his gloves were his wedding ring. Fortunately, they were, it was recovered. But I'm just wondering, why are you wearing a wedding ring playing football?
I thought they were supposed to remove all jewelry. But now that I think about it, do I see football games where guys are wearing chains?
You probably have. You probably have.
In basketball, you're not allowed to wear any kind of jewelry, chains, rings, or things like that. And yeah, I would think that's something that even is sacred as your marriage, but you still would take that ring off just from to avoid some kind of special injury or anything.
Absolutely.
To answer your question about linebackers, it's difficult to say because NFL has changed. It's gone to more of a passing offense. So linebackers have been devalued like running backs almost. If you can't cover a guy, you're not on the field. So when you talk about linebackers, probably three I would say, and the top two I would think with Kuechly gone. Kuechly was heads above the rest of them until he retired. I would say it's Bobby Wagner and Eric Kendricks. But I do like Davis' boy Darius Leonard a lot. He's a tackling machine. So I have to say Kendricks and Leonard are like 2A, 2B to me.
Okay, and I agree with that. That makes sense. That makes sense. Who are yours, Earl?
I'm not going to lie to you guys because you guys are all friends, and I just met Mr. Chenier. I did not do my homework.
Earl.
That's why I tried to skip the linebackers. As Kevin said, after the first down, they're playing the nickel and they're playing the dime situation. They're bringing in safeties and cornerback after the first down. So I don't really give the linebackers too much credit. But I wasn't going to just try to fake like I did. I just couldn't. I'm not interested in the position.
Okay. Well, I tell you what. Can we still talk about the all-time linebackers? I know you know some of those.
Oh, we can talk about the all-time linebackers like crazy. That's the question. I'm going with Lawrence Taylor. I'm going with Dick Butkus. I'm actually going with Ray Nitschke as well.
You're going really old school. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going old school. And
ball head.
He's frozen again. Kevin.
He's about to tell a lie, see?
Ray Lewis.
Absolutely. Ray Lewis, absolutely.
That's 4. If you get 4 out of 5 from me, that's good. Who do you have, Kevin, for your all-time?
So number one all-time greatest defensive player of all time, Lawrence Taylor, without a doubt. Then I'd say in descending order, Lawrence Taylor at the top, Ray Lewis, Mike Singletary, Dick Butkus, and then I'm torn between Derek Thomas and Jack Lambert because I think people forget how good the Steel Curtain was. You're a young guy. You don't.
They were good,
but Jack Lambert was a force. But Derek Thomas was unbelievable. So he would be my 5th.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna give you my 5. I did do my homework, but it's not too hard. Dick Butkus, and in no particular order, but Dick Butkus was my guy. Lawrence Taylor, and I'm not gonna put it in any order. Ray Lewis, Junior Seau, and a guy that nobody really talks about much anymore, but was really the first black guy to play the middle linebacker position of note, Willie Lanier for the Kansas City Chiefs. So, that's my 5.
Phil, did you have any favorite linebackers when you were coming up?
I'm listening to all the names that you say. The one that comes to mind, of course, he played for the 49ers, I'm thinking about, is Norton.
Ken Norton.
Okay. Ken Norton's son.
I can't even think of his first name now.
Yeah, he was Ken Norton Jr.
Right, Ken Norton. Yeah. But no, I'll refer to the rest of y'all about that.
Okay.
Phil's kind of like David. Phil's a 40. He's a Bay Area homer, and David's Indianapolis.
Right. Yeah. I found that out when he said Ken Norton was one of his favorites. Yeah. He's a homer. He's a homer for sure.
Ain't nothing wrong with that, Phil. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Okay, let's wrap this NFL up. We're going to go to NCAA. Then we're going to go to our closing statements. Far as the NFL, who has the top momentum right now? Give me just top 3. We don't have to go 5. Who are your top 3 teams right now for power ranking for the NFL?
Baltimore Ravens, number one by far, with a bullet. They just look like they should be in the Super Bowl. And I think the incumbent Kansas City Chiefs are there. I like my Seahawks as well. I don't know if Seahawks really deserve number three, but they're an ascending team, and they got a transcendent player. But I would say Baltimore and Kansas City, to me, look like the best two teams in the league.
Okay. I would go Baltimore, Kansas City, and Seattle for my top three right now.
I'm going to twist up a little bit because I believe in statistics and numbers, and I would say the Ravens with a 50-point differential are number one, and I would say the Packers, which have a 30-point differential, would be number two, and then three would probably be somewhere between Kansas City and Seattle. One of those teams. Okay,
that's fair. That sounds fair to me. Phil, you got a team?
So, all right.
I'll say the 49ers and the Raiders and
Bay Area.
Staying on.
Great.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. So the SEC starts this week, I believe, and the Big Ten is starting in a couple of weeks. You guys got anything to say, or if you guys care about the NCAA, let's chime in now because we're going to go to our closing thoughts and wrap this up.
From me, I think, college football has a challenge. And I think the example is best shown with what's happened with Notre Dame and Wake Forest and that game being canceled. It's very hard for these colleges to police these players and make sure that they stay safe. If you got a college game that's canceled, just like baseball had a problem. So we'll see. SEC, they think they're the big tuna anyway. We'll see if they play some games. We'll see.
Well, here's something we can talk about later on in one of our later shows is the whole bowl eligibility thing, because that's a big challenge, because if you got some of the power conferences going to end up playing like 9, 10, 11 games, and some going to play like 6 or 7, how do you measure to say who's eligible to play? So I think we got to wait. I think we can bring that up in another show later on, but I think that's a big issue, eligibility for bowl play.
That's a good point, Kevin. Absolutely good point.
Okay. All right. We're going to go with our closing thoughts. Let's start with you, Mr. Edmondson.
Okay. Well, I want to say, we started off, one of the things we talked about was injuries. And if you watch the season play out, the first 2 weeks, we had a lot of major injuries. And this past week, we had a significant injury to an up-and-coming superstar, and that was Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, for those who don't know, is one of the most super talented individuals I've seen come into the NFL in decades. He's a good kid. He does all the right things. He blocks, runs. He's smart. He's a good teammate on and off the field. But he tore his ACL, and it's really sad to see him do that. So all I want to do is give a shout out to Saquon. Hope you have a speedy recovery, and we look forward to seeing you kicking butt next year in 2021.
All right. Well, I wanted to talk about Lamar Jackson. Everyone's talking about he can't make the throws in the pocket, but for the past week at least, he was making some very good throws, and I think it's a matter of time that he will develop into a great pocket passer, and you better keep your eye on this guy. David?
Well, let me close with a shout out.
Mr. Chenier, do you have anything you need to say before we close out?
No, I'm just listening in. Just listening in. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. David, let's wrap it up.
Let me close with a shout out to a very special player who passed away today, Gail Sayers. I think all of us of a certain era had a chance to watch Gail Sayers. He died today at 77 years of age. He's one of the greatest football players to ever play the game. He only played 68 NFL games, but those 68 games were so spectacular, so electrifying, that Sayers became the youngest player ever inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was shifty. He was elusive. He had no peer in those skills, and he still doesn't, in my opinion. I watched Sayers intently every Sunday. The Bears were my favorite team growing up because here in Indianapolis, we didn't have a team at that point. And Chicago was kind of our de facto home team. As a result, I got to watch a lot of Gail Sayers. And I thought when I played football, by the time I got to play football, I only wanted to play running back. My little football career, which ended early in college, paled by comparison to Gail Sayers, obviously. But whose career, compares to Gail Sayers? Nobody's. Gail Sayers is one of the greatest runners of all time. I finally got to meet Gail Sayers in person about 10, 11 years ago. At the time, I was just over 50 years old, and Gail Sayers was 65, 66 years of age. But I felt like I was 10 years old again, and he was back in his prime. That's the funny thing about the kind of thoughts you have when you meet your hero in person. Gail Sayers, to my thinking, was the GOAT of running back artistry, if you get my meaning. He was a poet in flight to the end zone. I've never seen anybody like him. Rest in peace, Gail Sayers.
Earl?
Mr. Chenier, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming in tonight. We're going to wrap this up, and thank you so much for coming. David, you're always great. Kevin, thank you so much. You're the best. We're going to wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Phil.
All right.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you, Phil.
Down on that, so he was getting the feedback.
No. I figured we finished
Hey guys, I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right.
End the broadcast.